Good evening. I'm Kirk Crespin, Mayor for the City of Lamar. I want to welcome everybody to tonight's meeting for the City of Lamar City Council for Monday, July the 13th. I just wanted to welcome everybody here tonight, and it's been an exciting few weeks. We've had a few items come up. One of them, of course, many of you saw here on Facebook that we opened up the North Gateway Park on the far east two ponds for people to use kayaks and any type of non-motorized boats. It's been really nice to drive by there and see people actually utilizing them. I've seen a lot of pictures on Facebook with people utilizing it, and it's just great that it's being appreciated and used. So one of the other things, and we were kind of debating, but we do have a new business in town that's actually renting kayaks and paddle boards and different floating. So it's kind of a nice feature. The company is called Aquaholics. So if you have a chance, you can look that up on Facebook and move forward from there. With that being said, I'd like to start the meeting with the invocation from Ian Blecker. Amen. Oscar, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Joe Gonzalez.
Here.
Rafael Rodriguez.
Here.
Jerry Jenkins.
Is she on? She's just going, go ahead, go on.
Kurt Crespin.
Here.
Oscar Riley.
Here.
Manuel Temez.
Here.
Anne Marie Crampton.
Here.
Steve Kill.
Here.
Kristen McCrae.
Here.
Lance Clark.
Here. Okay. We have the consent agenda in front of you. Were there any questions or any items that needed to be separated from the consent agenda? I didn't see any in there. Did anybody else?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as submitted. Are there any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to the next item is the audience participation. During this portion of the meeting, anyone may speak on any subject that does not appear on the agenda. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each, and it's at the discretion of the council if they need more time than that. Do we have anybody online with questions or anybody who would like to address? It looks like we're a little bit behind lagging on Facebook. So we can come back to that a little bit later if they do have questions. We'll address those during the miscellaneous items at the end of the meeting. So for those who are watching, you're welcome to add your questions and we'll address those at the miscellaneous items at the end. Moving on, we have the City Treasurer Report. Kristen?
No, you haven't.
hard for me to talk, but the only thing I had tonight was, I've been in, like I said, the auditor's been on site, for about a week and a half. He did finish up his on-site work today, so that was pretty exciting for me. It's been really good though. What a change from the last few years, lots of communication. We've been moving forward pretty fast, and he has, answered our questions, giving us advice. I mean, it's been really good. And Lisa said the same thing as well. So it's going really well. So he'll go back to his office and work from there now, and hopefully by probably next weekend he should have a rough draft of the end of start looking at. So I'm pretty excited about that to get it finished, and it's moving forward really well. So I just thought I'd give you an update on that. Just had meetings getting ready for the grant hearing tomorrow, the 911 meeting regarding the center and the authority board, and that's about what we're getting done. So working on the budget in between.
Okay, thank you.
So I had a question. A couple of us received a very standard form that the auditor sends out regarding risk of fraud. Basically, what you're doing to make sure that you're watching for it and certain that you're trying to keep it in check. So, for the benefit of the other council members, could you just do like a minute on what the treasurer's office and administration does?
And so I think what the most important thing is in a setting like this is that you have layers. You have the work separated, so there's a separation of duties. So that's one of the best ways to circumvent fraud in an organization like this. So we have that set up on every level. Paying bills, charging things, credit cards. So we go through several processes. The invoices go through several hands before they get paid. We have a separation of duties. Since my department cuts the checks, and I approve POs, and then my staff cuts the checks, I don't sign the checks. I don't have access to the bank accounts. Linda does, so then I do the reconciliation on the accounts. So in every area that we possibly can, we separate those duties. So that helps lots of eyes and signatures, and the signatures that we have required on certain things. That helps with fraud. So in every way that we possibly can, we do that type of thing. It gets audited every year. I'm required to have a policy manual, a financial policy manual set up. It's required. It gets audited every year, and it gets audited. He'll pull a policy and then pull, say, a requisition or a PO is what we call them, making sure we're following our own policies that we've set up. So it's ongoing all of the time. It's one of the main things in my head. How can I make sure that it's transparent, that I've got lots of people looking at things so that, your risk of fraud is very low. So it's just one of the main things in my life, and it's very good for me because I'm very black and white, and I really like that sort of thing. So it's very important to me. So that's kind of in a nutshell, that's what we do. So if you have more specific questions, like
No, and it goes back to if you've never worked for a large corporation, it's internal controls and separation of duties, just to make sure, not that there are cases of fraud, but to discourage and to make sure that it doesn't happen.
And there's only
So I was going to say, just so you know, I know this is your first year as the Pro Tem. Roger and I have done this in the past, for the past 3-4 years. We've had the audits. They do that every year.
Right.
And it's generally the ones, so they sent the request out to Anne Marie and myself, because we're signers, I think is the only reason why. Is that
You're
correct?
the top
The top two.
management of the city, because that same questionnaire also comes to me.
Right.
It goes to Linda and it goes to Lisa. So
Okay.
there are 5 of us usually that fill that out, then he compares them, and just make sure that those things are in place.
For senior management, just kind of checks and balances to make sure. And then it also had a section in there about watchdogs. So if we had somebody come up through an employee that says, well, I think there might be something strange going on, at that point we can alert them, the auditor, to check that section and make sure because it is all about the transparency, and I know Kristen does a really good job about the transparency as it is, but this gives an opening for them to,
Because you can always get better, and
Yeah.
you miss things. I mean, so it's good to have that out there, questions being asked, and I love that. So, yeah, it's important. It's important that you have lots of eyes on it.
and just one last thing, the audit for the financial is very important. I've said this in the past, none of us are accountants, so for us to sit here and try to determine Kristen's performance, it's kind of hard for us to do that. But when the auditor comes in, he looks at all of that, he looks at the checks and balances, he looks at the policies. So in my mind, this is almost her evaluation for the year, because if there are problems financially with the bookwork, anything that may be going on in the department, this is the time when we would find that out. So I've used this kind of as a guide over the past few years as far as performance review for Kristen, and I think it's a very good idea to keep that in mind, that if you do have questions about what's going on, now's the time to ask. Well, we have the auditor, and they can go through and explain anything that you may have, and that helps a lot.
And I think what he'd like to do on that note, we talked about it the other day, is he'd like to have a work session with you first.
Close out.
Just visit with all of you, kind of, in a more private setting, and then do a public presentation to the council as well. So we'd like to do both, and I'm excited about that. Because I've just struggled over the last couple of years. We haven't had one. They didn't want to come down and do it. So, and that's just new for me. I've been doing this for a lot of years, and there's never not been an audit presentation to either the commissioners or to the council. So it's just been odd to me. But I was excited. He's got some really good ideas, things to simplify things, and that he'd like to visit with the council as a group first in a, like I said, in a work session. So we'll be setting that up when we get closer to being finished. And it will be sometime in August, I believe, that we'll have a final product. So we do have until September 30th was our extension. But I don't know if the work is being carried out that long. So.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions for Kristen before we move on?
Thank you.
You bet. Seeing none, we'll move on to the city clerk's report. Linda, would you like to talk to us about that?
So our sales and use tax for May collected in June was $346,984.02, which was up 11.5% or $35,782.58 from 2019. Our year-to-date is $1,996,430.50, which is up 7.06% or $131,591.66 from 2019.
That is great news. That's
really
good to
good
know.
news.
A lot of people shopping local during the epidemic, so that's very appreciated. Any questions for Linda? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the council liaison reports. Do you have any council members that have liaison reports? Okay, so seeing none, we'll move on to the city administrator's report. Steve?
Yeah, just so everybody is aware, we do have our DOLA presentation tomorrow morning. I will be there, Kristen will be there, Kirk will be there, and Pat. We'll have our engineers on remotely if there's a technical question for some reason one of us can't answer. It's a quick 5-minute presentation. We're going to be asking DOLA for $900,000 to finish phase 3 of our Main Street project. So hopefully that goes well. I just listed a few of the key items that we're going to cover. We do have a PowerPoint that we're going to present. Martha's already got this, so you're going to be ready for us tomorrow morning, right? So you can broadcast us again. We can do our podcast for DOLA, but we have a PowerPoint. We have everything that we need to discuss, so hopefully that'll go well. LMR 9 Bridge Project, I believe, is 100% complete. Kristen, that is accurate, right?
It is accurate, and I'm waiting for the last.
Main Street project is basically 100% complete. There are very, very minor items left. So Main Street's looking good.
That's the streetscape?
Yes.
Streetscape
Yeah.
of Main Street?
North Gateway Park, we already kind of announced that the non-motorized water sports are now approved at ponds 2 and 3. Easiest in, easiest out is pond 3, which would be the far east pond. Their kayak rental lease agreement, we talked about that earlier. We do have a company now that's called Aquaholics. Our city attorney is working on the agreement that we will have ready to present to you all at the next meeting this month. Kind of excited. We're kind of, hopefully can accelerate that. And we got some exciting things happening out there. We are working on some directional signage to the park. Kirk has received, and I think people on Facebook. I kind of made the mistake, and I assumed everybody here knew where the park was at. I thought I was the only one who really didn't. I had to learn. But apparently there are a lot of people who are having trouble finding it. So we're going to get some signage on Main Street to lead them back to North Gateway Park. And then maybe a nice park sign there. So there was a concern about that, so we are working on that right now. So everybody is aware of that. LPI, I attended the LPI board. As all of you know, we have our Economic Development Director, Angie, is going to be leaving us, so I am now attending the 7 a.m. LPI board meetings. And it was kind of nice. I asked the board if they could just hone in on some projects. Let's don't get 20 things going at once. Pick something you really would like to do so we can actually get it done. They identified the stage at the Enchanted Forest Park. I went out there and inspected it. I know Craig was going to go out there as well. The actual structure itself is built on telephone poles. It could support, elephants could walk across it. The top of it is weathered, it's worn. It needs a facelift. We're going to look at redoing that, and we're going to look at doing maybe a canopy over it. So, so that will really dress it up a little bit. And so the LPI board chose that as the one project they'd like to do. We still have about $6,000, I believe, to spend this year. And then remember the mini grant money, we've got $10,000 a year for the next 5 years. So the board, so when you're recommending projects, if you have a worthwhile project that costs $30,000, that will use 3 years of money. But if it's a good project, it's worth it. So, don't just worry about $10,000 each year if you can come up with a really worthwhile project. If not, that's kind of what our budget should be. So, but they identified that, and I wanted to bring that up to the council, see what you guys thought about that. It really needs some help.
Yeah.
Cosmetically.
In that area, the train is there too, and I know several months ago, we had somebody bring that up. The train needed to be touched up a bit itself. They said it looks pretty.
And it's actually $13,275. We have to make a match on that. So that gives you a little bit extra.
Like I said, I don't know what the cost is yet, but the structure is solid, perfect, solid. So once we've got the main part of the project done. Like I said, Craig's working on that, but are you guys okay with moving forward on something like that? That sounded like a great use of the funds, and I went out there and it does need help, Manuel.
So-
I really like the idea of putting a cover over the top of
So
it.
Yeah.
LPI won't be spending their money, they're gonna be spending our 10,000, our
Well,
15,000?
LPI is going to spend the remainder of their money this year, which is $60-some hundred, I believe is what Angie said.
Okay, are we
but-
talking about the Main Street grant money?
Well, we're talking about we may need some extra money, so we're looking at maybe using some mini grant money.
Oh, I see, to supplement.
Supplement it.
What they have already.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So,
Okay.
but again, I didn't want to start going gangbusters on this until I brought it up in the report and make sure that the council's okay with it.
I think it's a good idea. It's utilized more during the fall and the winter than anything. Oktoberfest and parade of lights, things like that. So
Well, if we can do kind of a canopy over it and maybe do some lighting,
You could probably use it.
it'll be a lot more attractive
Yeah.
to do things on the stage with.
Right now, it's in the blazing sun. I mean, to do anything out there, if they're trying to put any type of band or anything, there's no relief from the sun. in the
No,
summer months.
there's not. So we're looking at maybe like a top on it. So, but as long as everybody is okay with that, we'll move in that direction then.
okay.
On that. So that was really all I had for tonight. Just a few updates on things. I don't know if we want to touch on COVID
Well, can I add one thing to your report?
Sure, absolutely.
You had talked about the Main Streetscape project. Of course, the streetscape project included the pots, the flower pots, as well as the benches. There's been some questions asked about that because there's a block on Main Street that, around the J&N Shoes area, that between, I guess that would be Beach and Elm, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's-
Anyhow, there was an area that did not have any benches at all. And we did check into that and what the reasoning was. And if you look at that street, it's very congested with signs. Yeah, the big giant traffic signs with CDOT. And apparently there's a lot of utilities that are underground. So for them to dig down into the sidewalk and put those benches, there just wasn't the room for that. So unfortunately, those ones didn't get the bigger, solid benches, but they will get some of the smaller ones. Is that correct? Angie had some smaller
We
ones?
we can put a smaller bench, just not the permanent concrete ones.
Right.
There was, like Kirk said, he did receive a question about that, and there is a legitimate planning and construction reason that wasn't done.
Right.
So, it wasn't forgotten about.
And personally, I'd like to add, because I've been asked this many, many times, why did the city spend all this money on benches that nobody will use? And for me, personally, I would put up 100 of those benches down Main Street because we're getting free money from the state to do streetscaping, and we're able to hire a local contractor to do this work. That supplies money to our community, that supplies jobs to our community, and it helps beautify our downtown area. I mean, if we needed to put butterflies up there, if they wanted to send us $200,000, I'd be happy to work on that as well. But it's free money that we can utilize with our local businesses, and so that is a lot of the reason why we do some of these projects that seems like it's a waste of money, but quite frankly, it is very beneficial for our community, and not only for aesthetics and making our community look beautiful, but financially as well. So I wanted to throw that out there because I've been asked that many, 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 many times. So we do look at all those things, and we try to do the best we can with that.
I would stress the point, it doesn't cost us.
It doesn't cost us. This is money that we've received from the state. So, all right. Any questions for Steve on his administration report?
Or in general.
Like Manuel brought up the train. We gotta do something with the train. The engine.
It's in bad shape.
Yeah, we know that.
I've looked at it. I finally made it out there when I was looking at the stage, and I looked at the train too.
Is that city or is that chamber?
The train?
Yeah.
Train belongs to the city, I believe.
Okay.
Usually,
Moved it.
I asked. I can't remember. I asked somebody what railroad, what locomotive is that? You know,
Well, would it make
Canadian
Santa Fe?
National would, you know, usually those railroads will allocate a certain amount of money to redo those types of engines that are displayed in communities.
I'm sure it was probably Santa Fe.
So what? Baldwin.
A Baldwin.
So that's
Baldwin.
the type of,
Manufacturer.
right.
Who,
But-
but what railroad?
ATSF, Santa Fe.
Okay, Santa Fe. So it may be advantageous to contact the Santa Fe and ask them if they have any kind of a program. A lot of the railroads have a lot of educational, they have a lot of money that they can spend in communities for types of things like this. So perhaps if we can get a hold of the Santa Fe or whoever, I'm not even sure the Santa Fe's around anymore. They may have been acquired by somebody else.
Burlington North, that's who runs through there.
So I'm not sure. But that would be, I guess, how we would do it, Oscar.
I'll ask Cameron Wednesday. Airport.
Yeah, I mean,
He
you
goes to the
know,
railroad.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, Union Pacific picked up a lot of them. Canadian National picked up some railroads.
So we did get a very small grant from BNSF to do our first bench on Beach. Right?
Those side benches, the
Right.
test benches that we have, yes.
So somewhere in your office, you might actually have contact information.
Wasn't it the?
I'll have to look for that.
Shade
Yeah.
also, the Park Park? Or Shade in the Park Park? Is that the
I don't think it was those, no.
They gave money for something.
The two test benches are on the side street right there by
On Beach, yeah.
Beach. So
You could be right. Could be that too.
I think they just gave us a check and they said, that's what it is for.
Yeah, John talked to them and they just sent us a check.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't
I think it was
a,
something to do with the pocket park.
yeah, it wasn't a strenuous.
It was the shades for the
grant.
pocket park.
It was the
And there's a
shades.
sign up.
There's a plaque right by Main Street, or by Main Street, on that first shade structure you walk in, there's a plaque from the internet site.
Okay.
But I think, Oscar, that'd be the best way to do it. I'm not sure how else we would.
And maybe they have resources that they can contact for restoration,
Yeah.
other than just spend money.
Because ours is bigger than Lahana's, but theirs looks better.
I don't like that. I know you don't either, so. You know, another thing would be I know that I've been looking at lately is the wall in Willow Creek Park. All the stonework and I mean,
That's the WPA project?
yeah, there's another big ticket item that we don't really have
Historical money that helped
Yeah.
us repair part of that.
yeah, but we don't have a town, or in the city, we don't have like a designated area we could take that from. We'd have to tap into the historical, just something like that in some kind of grant money, but those would be actually two really worthwhile projects, the train and the stonework.
And I think the Stone Grove, since it's a park, they helped us out with that too, so we might check with Grove since it is a park area.
Yeah, we really do need to get to work on that one and
But I
put it
do
as a
know
priority for that stone wall.
We did get some money from historical, it was before my time, but I've seen the folders on it for repair for part of that now. That rock.
So that's kind of in the back of my mind as well, the train too, when I saw it, so. We have a lot of needs and we're
One of the things that you had mentioned to us when you first were, looking at the city and, when you were new here, you mentioned that with each entryway into the city, there seemed to be a junkyard. And you had talked about possibly finding a way to.
Well, as it turns out, Manuel, myself, and our city attorney are working on that very project right now. I haven't really brought it up recently, but that is one of the things that I had noticed when I first arrived in the community, that we fortunate enough to have a junkyard at every entrance. And so I would hope that we can work with the property owners, but as it turns out, myself and Lance had a very lengthy conversation about this maybe a week ago, right before the 4th, and Lance is actually working on this for us right now. We actually are planning on starting on the south end of the community, and again, we want to piece away and do one at a time. So Farm Credit is also looking at annexing into the community. That will allow us to annex the property then to the east of that. The problem we're running into with these is we don't have contiguity. They're not in the city, but yet they reflect upon the city. And I know that's where you're going with this, and I know that's what I thought as well. So we figure we take one at a time. So we actually had a meeting not too long ago where we went through a lot of these things, and I still have them on my list of things to go after. So glad you asked that question. We are diligently working on that right now, yes.
On the one on the south end, when that went in, there was an agreement. Supposed to have X amount of vehicles there, and that was it. Period. So we complained to the county said for us to enforce it.
You know, Oscar, I would love to. I need them in the city limits before I can start enforcing it.
Right. That's what we said. I said, how do you enforce it? They said, turn off their utilities.
It's probably not a good idea to just go do that arbitrarily, so
I mean, that was the answer we got.
I think, I know that we have been in contact with the property owner, and they're willing to cooperate with us, and if we assist with some of the cleanup. So the first step is, let's identify ownership, let's get them annexed into the city, then we'll probably work a revitalization agreement with them or something. And then I would love, and I know Martha, one of the things I've got on her list among doing podcasts is new signage. The signage for our community is not in the best of shape, and we were looking at maybe doing something a little more modern. So at some point I will be presenting that to the council as well. But I thought that would be a wonderful area. Clean it up, do a new entrance to the community, and, you know, and people notice that.
Yeah.
You know, prospective businesses notice that. People that perhaps want to locate in the city, they will notice those things. So
Thank you.
we are working towards that.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item. We do have a visitor here tonight, Doug Harbert. The next item on the agenda is to approve the installation of the 9/11 Memorial Honor Wall sidewalk. Steve had brought this to us after working with Doug on this project. Would you like to speak on that, Steve?
Yeah, I did. I was fortunate enough to meet with Mr. Harper, who's in attendance tonight, and the rest of the 9/11 committee. And basically, everybody knows where the monument's at. They are requesting, and I put a drawing in the packet. They're requesting our assistance with sidewalk. Doug and his group will purchase all the materials and asked if the city could install the concrete on the sidewalk. The county has been delivering gravel and different things that have been needed. So we're kind of looking at this as a cooperative effort with the city, the county, and the memorial group. And you know, there's really no cash, but we would offer in-kind labor. You know, our city crews can put the sidewalk in. Pat figures that it would take about 3 days. 1 day to prep, 1 day to form, 1 day to form, pour, prep and form, pour, and then strip it. So we did come up with a plan. I know Doug was happy with it. So and that's the sketch.
Would you like to address the council, Doug, or say
Just a
anything?
minute.
Yeah.
First, I'd like to thank the council.
Can you come up a little bit?
Okay, where do you want me?
Just right there by the
That
end, towards the
okay?
end. There you go. That's good.
First, I'd just like to tell you how much I appreciate how much help the city's been all along with this. You know, and this is looking like, you know, it's like you were talking, Steve, that it's a joint effort between and bringing all the entities together. And throughout the whole process for the last number of years we've been working on this, I've had positive, you know, reactions from everybody. I mean, I think just very few people have ever had, you know, had any problems with what we're doing out there. Show you why it's important. Yesterday or the day before, one of the committee members was driving by the memorial and he noticed there were about 20 or 30 people there and all sorts of vehicles parked in the parking lot, and they were gathered down at the memorial. So he stopped to see if he could explain what we were doing and what the next part of the projects would be. And lo and behold, there was a young man that was going into the military. And his recruiter, all his family, and the VFW and Legion guys had come in and they had a flag raising and a ceremony in his behalf. Now, so that's really cool. You know, there's all sorts of uses for out there. Yeah, and the biggest thing is that if we can, this sidewalk, bless you guys' heart, because I've been fiddling with trying to work all these different angles for so long. It's getting, but to hear 3 days, whoa.
Once we start, it'll take us 3 days. We'll be
Man,
done.
I tell you, that's just amazing. I mean, because that's so exciting. And I'm asking, when we bring that sidewalk down, we discuss making a little arc behind the rock.
Correct.
Yeah, and see what we'll do there is that we want to build a kiosk. You know, the whole project, we put some extra picnic tables and all this stuff so kids can come in, you know, school buses, tour up in the museum, and then come down to the memorial when we get it finished. And with this kiosk right there, they'll learn and explain what happened on that day. But we've got a hunk of burnt limestone from Shanksville, Pennsylvania, from the National Park Service that sent me. That was where Flight 93 went in the ground. And I want to have that displayed with I've got some artifacts from New York City, some Port Authority things, and some metal from one of the beams from the Trade Center. But I want these to be displayed where the kids can actually physically touch them. You know, I think that'd be important. It's realistic, you know, it's a real thing to them. But at any rate, we're getting close, and with your help, man, we're just about there. If anybody'd like it, I brought some pictures, you know, a set of pictures for everybody here that they can kind of see what it all looks like if you hadn't been up there. But I can leave them here with you or whatever. Anyway, I just wanted to thank you, and, you know, Steve,
Okay.
what,
Yeah, we're gonna put some conduits under the sidewalk for electrical lighting, a sprinkler system. We're going to increase the size of, the cross-section of the sidewalk in the middle there, so we can actually have a crossing for the lawnmowers and everything without cracking it. So we've given some thought to this. I was fortunate enough to meet Doug out there and myself and Pat. We went through the whole project. I thought it was a wonderful, a great cooperative effort. So I wanted to bring that in front of the council, just so everybody could just see what was being planned and, you know, authorize us to assist.
I make a motion the city do the concrete work.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the city's assistance with the installation of the sidewalk and concrete takeoffs for the 9/11 memorial. Are there any final questions?
Just to be clear, no, the city won't have an obligation for maintenance or anything like that.
we've signed a 20-year lease with the county, so eventually it will revert back to the county. But at this point in time, their crews are helping with, going out mowing the grass. And I've visited with the scouts too. I want to, present and try and get as many young kids that have ownership in this project. We've had some of the high school kids help build some of those parts of it and this and that. But so they're on board. They're talking about helping, going out and taking care of the policing of it and making sure it's cleaned up and everything. I do that myself anyway. No time to go by. Just for your knowledge too, within the next not very long, I'm hoping it could be any day now, but Van Hooks in Lahaina, where they have that landscaping, we contracted with them. They're going to bring a whole bunch of red granite, crushed red granite in, and around the Maltese Cross, that's going to go in next. So, yeah, so it'll pretty up when people come around the corner. It's getting there. But thank you guys so much, because the city, from day one, and getting somebody out there to just help with all the surveying and stuff like that, it's come a long way. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor, and are there any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and the motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is an appointment to the Adjustment and Appeals Board. Craig's not here, but Craig Brooks is the city building inspector, is the initiator for this item. We have an opening on the Adjustment and Appeals Board. The Adjustment and Appeals Board has given us the recommendation to renew an application from Mr. Brian Estes to serve on the board for another term. And his term expires on July the 1st, 2020. Are there any questions?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the appointment of Mr. Brian Estes to the Adjustment and Appeals Board for a 5-year term. Are there any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is appointments to the Lamar Utility Board. The Lamar Utility Board had 2 positions that had came up for renewal. Jay Brook was on one of them, and he has been on the board. He is asked to be renewed. And it is a recommendation that from the Lamar Utilities Board that he continues with another 5-year term. Are there any questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
Make a motion, we accept it.
Second. We have a motion and a second to accept Robert J. Brook, to serve on the Lamar Utility Boards for a 5-year term. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next item is another appointment to the Lamar Utility Board. This one I was kind of happy about, to get him back involved. The Lamar Utility Board has had an opening for the last 3 or 4 months after Leo Hernandez had resigned from the board. And the board is actually recommending Mr. Roger Stagner to serve on the board for the 5-year term, and Roger has agreed. So That is a recommendation.
I move we approve Roger Steiner to add to the board.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve Roger Stegner to the Lamar Utility Board. Are there any final questions?
That's
Seeing
for
none?
the unexpired 5-year term.
Yes. All right, seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Agenda item number 5 is to award bid number 40-006, the contract for janitorial services for the Lamar, Colorado Welcome Center. Steve, would you like to talk on this one?
Yeah, it's the same individual, Daniel Newhold, at $675 a month.
It's been since 2013.
Yeah, they've been there for a while. I
Yeah,
know,
it was
so.
615, they raised it
Yeah.
$25, and he does it for you.
The state is funding that again?
And we did put this out to bid for the public, right?
We did, I did put it out for bid, and we only got the one bid.
The one bid. Okay.
I'll make a motion that we keep going with Daniel Newhold.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to continue the agreement for custodial services with Mr. Newholt. Are there any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Agenda item number 6, CARES Act ambulance purchases for COVID-19. Chief Burkhart has brought this up, so I'll let you speak on this.
Right, so with our CARES Act funding that the city received through the state, we've been tasked with trying to allocate some of this to our response or continued response to probably the second wave of COVID. And utilizing a small staff that we have in our ambulance service, we need to figure out ways we can do this more efficiently and safely. One way to get it accomplished, and just to jump back here real quick, I'd like to thank Councilman Gonzalez for coming by today and getting his questions answered. Stopped by for about 30 minutes, maybe a little
Somewhere
more.
around there, yeah.
And really got a good feel for what all this entails and why we need this. So it really helps us out. What we're looking at is moving on to equipping the rest of our fleet with power load cots and the power lift cots for safety. We can cut down on the exposure to responders by only utilizing 2 now and just go ahead and load, especially if it's a heavier patient of 700 pounds. In the ambulance, the AED component that we have in there for the LifePak 15s, those monitors will sit there and monitor our patient for us while we can perform advanced treatments if we need to that patient, and again, only utilize 1 EMT in the back to help get this accomplished and keep basically a robotic second eye on our patient, so that way we can keep moving forward. And one other issue that's been brought up through this crisis has been patient confidentiality. Not that it was an issue before in HIPAA, but Scannerland has been bringing a lot of things to light for us, and complaints, and people want, especially if they've been exposed or whatever, just due to the stigma of it, they want to be kept out of the limelight. So we've had an issue with the renewal, and we want to go ahead and utilize the rest of some more of the monies to replace our aging fleet of radios. Both the radios and AEDs are end of life, so these are purchases that will be happening anyhow in the next couple of years. Like the AEDs are aged out this coming in 21. Motorola is not fixing our current fleet of radios anymore. If they do break, we've got to sit there and stare out whether we just don't have a radio on someone. I'd entertain any questions, or Chris, I'd like to kick in on this.
Well, the consulate for encrypting.
The consulate for encrypting, yeah, we
That
would
way
be
the public can't scan the
adding
calls.
that.
So this would add encryption to the scanners
Yes.
for privacy.
Okay, radios, correct.
And that was per suggestion from the public health.
Okay. All right.
And
Any
this would all
questions?
be, I'm sorry, would be contingent on DOLA approving these purchases.
Okay.
I
So we add that contingent part to your motion.
Yes, I move that we authorize purchase of the equipment as suggested equipment from Chief Burkhart, contingent on DOLA approval.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the purchase of the equipment of the fire department from the CARES Act funding, contingent upon approval from DOLA. It looks like we did have somebody that questioned what is the total price of the ambulance equipment to be purchased?
So the total price through the base level projects is going to be $316,989.
$316,989.
That's it.
Okay. So
That
there's
was
the answer.
the reason, Kurt, can I, if you don't mind, that was the reason why I went down to the fire department. I wanted to find out, and take a look, and Jeremy was kind enough to give me a run through of the equipment that they would need to replace, and made sense to me, as to what they need to replace and why they need to replace it. It made perfect sense, and I know it's a large sum of money, but for what these guys go through and what they need and what they do, I felt it was a necessity.
And this keeps the burden off of the city because we can use the CARES Act funding. So we would have had to make these purchases because of the end of life of the other equipment. So this gives us an opportunity to get it taken care of with those other fundings from the COVID without taking from the city. So it's good timing and good opportunity for the city. And of course, since we do cover for the county for our ambulance service, this would benefit the county as well as the city. So all of the services we cover. We do have a motion, first a motion and a second on the floor. Do we have any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 7 is the FAA grant application for the master plan update. The city administrator, Steve Kill, initiated this, so I'll let you speak on that.
Yeah, this is the recommendation of our airport board. Myself and Oscar go to those meetings to assist the board and everything. We are at a point right now where we are ready to award this, and the recommendation is for $349,174 to Javiation to do our airport master plan, so be paid for by the FAA. We really can't do anything or much at the airport until we get this master plan in place, meaning this will be our key and this will open the door for more grant money and things like that. The FAA is requiring that we do a master plan. It's important to note that we were very, very particular when we were speaking with JVA on the components of the master plan. Not only are they going to have the requirements of the FAA in there specifically, but it will have attainable goals that we can reach for improvements to the airport. Too many times these master plans just contain pie in the sky goals and objectives that we can't possibly hope to ever meet. We were very clear with Javiation that that is not the kind of plan we're going to adopt. We want them to garner community input. They're going to be checking with a bunch of community members. They're going to be doing a lot of due diligence, and this will have attainable goals in it, just so everybody's clear.
And this is a mandatory FAA. Have to have it.
I would assume that it's good timing since we just changed to a regional airport. Like it's going to be put on a whole different meaning before.
We're hoping that helps, yes. Anne-Marie, yes, that's absolutely regional status. They say what's in a name, but that could figure into flight plans now. One of the items, one of the most important items, is the self-service fueling center, that has a lot of merit to that. And Oscar's been on those discussions too, so it probably wouldn't surprise me that sooner than later we're going to try to figure out a funding source, and we're going to bring that in front of the city council as maybe one of the first improvements, with changing signage and things like that. But like Oscar said, the master plan is an absolute mandate by the FAA. We have to get one done. They're paying for it. It's been vetted. We actually hired a consultant to verify that the price we received was correct. So not only do we have to get the consultant, we had to pay somebody to double check the consultant that we wanted to use. Again, another requirement of the government. That's all been done, and we're at the point right now. The recommendation is to award the master plan update and actually the drafting of the master plan for $349,174 to JVation.
Okay.
So
Kristen.
is this the grant application to apply for the money, is what it looks like to me that you sent me? So we have to apply for the money first, but you're asking to apply for the money and go ahead
And
work?
approve it, yes.
And will you bring a contract back then for
We will.
vacation?
I think we do the master plan, I think, every 10 years. I think that's correct.
Yeah, we really don't have a good one though.
No.
We almost don't have a master plan.
No, that's.
This is kind of the,
Let's get it started.
we really need to get started, yeah.
And I have one more question, the timing of this, I couldn't find it anywhere, what the grant goes from here to here. Do you
We are
know
actually
the
gonna,
timing on
we
that?
want to start like really quick on that.
Since
So-
we're awarded, so after the grant is awarded, then you'll start with the contract. Do you know when the award will come?
Oh geez, Oscar, that would be soon, within the next couple of months, right? I
know
believe-
Fiscal year is September. that's
What was
correct.
the question?
It will be during this fiscal year and then we'll start immediately.
So maybe awarded in September
Yeah.
on their fiscal
I would
year?
believe
And then,
so.
so would it be in this year's budget or next year's budget? I mean, how long will
It will be in next year's budget. It's going to take quite some time, yes.
Okay.
Oh, by the time JVation gets done, they're going to be at this 8 months.
I don't even, they just made Bill the FAA.
Well, it's all a process. I have to get logged into the site, and that was part of this, that we have log into their reimbursement site. It's a Delphi
Okay.
site. It takes the permission for me to get from her to find everybody. It's a reimbursable grant. So we pay Aviation, and we turn it in, we do.
Okay.
Okay.
But it does require city council approval.
So we do need city council approval. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the FAA grant application for the Airport Improvement Project Master Plan. Are there any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Agenda item number 8, an agreement to accept the Peace Officer Standards and Training, the POST grant, for 2020. This is initiated by Chief Kyle Miller. Did you want to speak on this?
Yeah, so we applied for in the neighborhood of $10,000. This is for our in-service grant, the in-service training we have to have every year to keep our police active. Unfortunately, there was a pretty big cut. Everybody in the state, we had about $3,000 is all. So what we're going to use that for is we have daily training bulletins. You guys went every day into a different training on our policy and procedure. The trainings are done from our policy. The policy company and the daily training bulletin company are the same company. So it's very interactive or intertwined between the two. So that whatever trainings they're doing are directly related to our policies that we have in place. So this isn't going to quite cover all of that daily training bulletin payment, but it will cover the vast majority. It's about $3,600. So we'll just have to cover the $600 out of my training. So all I'm asking for is just permission to accept its electronic signature that I'll sign, and we'll get it going.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve and accept the Peace Officer Standards Post-Training Grant. Are there any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Agenda item number 9 is Plainview Apartments and DOLA request for the city administrator CDBG funding for the building improvements. Steve had brought this to us to review for the Plainview Apartments project. Would you like to speak on that, Steve?
Yeah, we briefly touched on this. Earlier this month, there was a conference call I had with Melissa from DOLA and Tom Simpson, who who represents Plainview Apartments, the owners. Basically, these are the apartment complexes out by the high school. And the way it was explained is they were built with HUD money about 17 years ago. The current owner wants to sell it. However, they need upgraded new air AC units, new furnaces, all kinds of just items like the new appliances, just a lot of new things so people can move in. So the actual owners applied to DOLA to use CDBG money. The reason the city's involved in this is that DOLA cannot grant CDBG money directly to a private entity. It has to go through a public entity, such as the city, and then we take that money then and loan it to the owner to make these improvements. It's not city money. I spent a lot of time on the phone with these people. I asked a lot of hard questions. Why we would be loaning money for a private entity to sell something, to make money. I've never used CDBG money in this manner. However, DOLA is strongly encouraging us that we do this. Benefit to us is we have new buildings. We have the ability for people to now live in newly renovated buildings. They are getting old, so they do benefit low to moderate income people. That's who's in there right now. And DOLA is requesting that we participate in this project.
Yeah, Steve, we will earn interest on this loan to cover administrative expenses,
We will,
right?
it's at 1%, and that's pretty set. We can't ask for more.
Right.
I mean, it's not really, we get the benefit of new buildings.
Well, who's going to do the
We're-
oversight on the upgrades and everything? Because
That is strictly DOLA and CDBG. We are a conduit to loan them money. Our return, we're loaning money that's not ours.
Right.
And we're gaining 1% on it. So,
Right.
I mean, we get the benefit of new structures. We have places for people to live. They can't just adjust the rate, and they can't adjust the rent to whatever they want. They have to live within the HUD guidelines. So the market value is probably not what everybody would think.
Sure. I guess my
Yeah.
concern is HUD, or we're going to make sure that what they say they're doing, they're going to do.
Oh yeah, they have to pay the money back.
And as
They're
far
under
as repairs, that would be under.
They're under contract with them. And they're going to be at our public hearing. If the council would like to participate in this, we would have a public hearing on July 27th. DOLA will be here, and they will make a presentation to the city council. They're requesting, but they've asked me many times. Stephanie from SCCED is working with it. Everybody seems to be working on this project, which is good. It's a good thing.
So we're just a pass-through conduit.
We're a pass-through, yeah.
Again, this is state money,
money.
CDBG grants, community block development grants that would be coming into the community. Hopefully they would choose some local contractors, but at least the benefit would be improved lower income housing. So the only thing
New
they're
housing.
asking is for us to manage and administrate the funds, and that's it. And we were discussing how to do that, maybe using our building finance corp to lend it through, but those are details that'll be worked out after. So you're just looking for participation approval.
That's it, and to schedule a public hearing so DOLA can come in and we can actually have a public hearing on this project.
And then we'd be able to ask
Right.
more details.
I'm sure that Mr. Simpson will be here, who used to work for DOLA, by the way, who is now representing private property owners. And I'm sure Melissa would be here, Tara might be here from DOLA. We'll see, but we need to authorize, number one, if you want to participate, that's great. Number two, authorize a public hearing on July 27th.
Okay.
Make a motion to participate.
And did you want to add the public hearing to that?
Well, if it passes, then we'll set up a public hearing.
Okay.
We have to
We
schedule a
have to
public
schedule
hearing.
the public hearing.
It takes advance notice, yeah. I'm going to take that as a yes from you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at this point, they're not getting the money right now at this point until public hearing.
That is correct.
So all we're doing now is just asking for a public hearing.
Well, and remember, when we have a public hearing, there's gonna be audience. We'll have
Well, I
public
certainly hope
input
so.
for this. Oh,
Yeah, because that's a lot of money they're asking for. And
You know what, I asked a lot of hard questions, Joe, because I have never participated or have spent CDBG money in this manner. However, this is HUD money, administered by DOLA.
So will it be us doing the application first?
Yes,
So I'll have to do the application.
because it will go through us. And Mr. Simpson, who's their consultant, is actually going to prepare everything.
So we won't allow me to be.
Well,
I just want to know if that's.
it's gonna help.
the case on this.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion.
And I'll second, and I just want to have a little point of order that it's Plains View,
Plains View. Thank you.
2 words, I believe.
Did I have plain view?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, everything's Plain View here, so I understand, but I believe it is Plains View Apartments. No?
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to participate in the DOLA request for the city to do the CDBG funding on this project, and then to set a public hearing. Are there any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion passes. Do you want, that would be the next meeting, or? when would
July
that-
27th.
July 27th would be the public hearing.
Correct.
Okay, next item on the agenda is Resolution 20-7-01, a resolution of the City of Lamar, Colorado, renaming a street connected to Sunset Ridge, currently known as Ridge Trail.
Number 10 is.
Oh, I must have grabbed two. I got more than one.
I must have skipped a page.
I did skip a couple. I went through and
You
grabbed the
skipped
wrong
item
one.
one, you skipped item 1 too earlier.
Did I really?
The public hearing that was canceled for the fair. We were
Okay.
gonna announce that we were supposed to have a public hearing, however, the petitioner withdrew the request.
I skipped that one too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought you were waiting till later.
No, we can add that. Okay, so we'll move back to agenda item number 10. Contract with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife for North Gateway Park.
Yeah, I don't know, and I was talking to Kristen about this earlier, we have a current contract in place with Parks and Wildlife. Basically, what they're doing is they are providing us with 53.165 acre feet of water to cover the evaporative loss on 3 ponds in North Gateway Park. The way they accomplish this is through this application, this special use agreement. And we do it annually, every year. It's standard. This is what it is. They really don't have anything to do with North Gateway Park, which is why we can make the improvements out there we want. The only thing they ask is they'll supply the water, they want waterfowl resting, and that's about it.
And they stop.
They do stock the fish, yes.
Stuff them on.
They stock them, yes. So that is important.
And they work closely with us on the ramps and the projects we've had to Inspire as well.
I mean, they've been great partners. So, and this is just an annual agreement. And I would recommend we approve it.
Probably don't know Colorado weather laws, but if they didn't, we'd have to pump 53 acres of water back into the river.
Yeah, I'm learning the water laws. I'm used to.
Yeah.
I'm used to having the Great Lakes in my back door, so this is a little bit different.
Yeah. Okay.
Make a motion to accept.
Second. We have a motion and a second to accept the annual agreement with the state of Colorado, the Department of Wildlife for North Gateway Park. Are there any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Just making sure I don't skip one again. So I did jump from 10 to 13. I don't have an 11.
I don't either. It's in our
There is
Watering contract.
no the watering contract 11 and 12. I wanted to discuss.
And you sent emails.
I sent out an email to everybody with these after the agenda went out. We were struggling with the watering contract for quite some time. It's the folks who water the plants on Main Street for us. Really, really nice people. However, they do utilize a city vehicle, and we have a watering truck. That vehicle, what brought this to light was a semi had clipped the vehicle as it was parked alongside the road when they were watering. As a general rule, an independent contractor typically does not use city equipment. However, in this instance, CIRSA provides coverage. And we were having a tough time reconciling that. I know myself and Lance discussed it at length. If something happens, we'll never get out of liability of it, but at least we have insurance coverage. Lance, is there anything else you want to say on this? I know.
I think you covered it. I mean, the biggest concern is you have risk involved. The city would be pulled into litigation if something happened.
And that's because they're using city equipment, is that correct?
I mean, everyone gets sued when you have litigation, so it's definitely going to be, we would definitely be a party to any kind of case if something were to happen.
But if they were using their own vehicle, would we still be held liable?
They would be they would be a true independent contractor, and they would just be under contract with us, like.
What if they lease the vehicle?
Well,
The same way that you're gonna lease that
Manuel,
that
we-
building over at the park?
right, we did verify with CIRSA that we have the coverage. They will extend coverage to them, but I would request a couple things happen first. I would like them to issue us a certificate of additional insured on top of this, naming the city as additional insured, and we have to run the MVR, the motor vehicle report, like we would any other driver. So I kind of wanted to get some thoughts from the council on this. We've actually been struggling with this for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, to figure out how, just to make sure the city's covered.
Right.
And we're not, and our exposure's not so great. So,
Well, with CIRSA covering us, they said
which
they would
helps a
cover.
lot,
That
yes.
helps
We
a
have it
lot.
in writing from them, yes.
This gives us the opportunity to cover them, but, we can add the additional protections with that, like you said.
And those are not in the contract or anything, but I would like, if we approve this contract, which we have done years, this has been every year this has come up, but I think we need to make sure we run the MVRs. If they're gonna be driving our vehicles, I have no reason to believe there's any problems, but we require that for every driver.
Does
If
it
anybody's
change?
gonna drive our vehicle, they should have the same.
And it hasn't happened every year. It has the last, I believe, 3. But prior to that, we had them as an employee,
Well, we
as a
don't,
seasonal employee.
we don't wanna-
So we didn't run into that
well,
liability issue.
we don't want them to be seasonal employees
Right.
because the law's gonna change.
So then we went to a
and-
contract, and so we've been doing this the last.
Does it change anything if they're leasing the vehicle?
I don't think we wanna get into leasing.
Well, I mean,
So-
I'm not saying that we have to charge them for it, but if they're under if they're in a lease agreement, then the liability changes.
Well, they'll be under a contractual agreement with us. Yes, there is a contractual agreement where it says specifically in there, they're allowed the use of the vehicle and the watering tank. Now that CIRSA's covering us, I feel a little better. I think Lance feels a whole lot better, because I can tell you, if CIRSA wouldn't cover us, I don't know how we're gonna do this.
Right.
But we did finally verify that with them. They checked. I just want 2 things added to the contract. I want the MVR reports run, and I'd like a certificate of insurance. I want to know they're fully insured too.
Right.
Because we just did have a minor accident.
Will that cover it, Lance?
It's the same.
Like I said, it's not to remove our liability from it, but at least we have assurances that the insurance will be there in the event something happens. It's a risk, but it's at least minimized by the fact that we have insurance.
Lance, worst case scenario, God forbid that one of them gets hurt while they are watering the plants. What could possibly take place there for the city? Huge amounts of millions of dollars of liability right there.
I mean, any kind of car accident can be pretty expensive on the liability side. It just depends on a lot factors that, I mean, what injuries occur, what damage occurs. I mean, beyond just what damages to vehicles. I mean, you're talking about hospital stays and anything like that. Obviously, like I said, having that insurance makes me feel a lot better than before when we were discussing it, not knowing. We were going back and forth on a lot of things, trying to figure out the best way to discuss the leasing issue. But if you start doing that for one person, where does that end? And how far do we go with leasing city?
One more question, that liability, is it still the same if they had their own vehicle? Used their own vehicle and took our tank?
They have their own vehicle, the city's not providing a source of, not providing an equipment or tool for them. So I don't see it being the same as if they're using our vehicle.
So we're not under the same liability?
Well, it's, like I said, our exposure is the fact they're using our vehicle.
You know what, Joe, what it does more than anything is provides a logical link from an opposing attorney to pull the city in. That's what it does. If there was an accident, they are gonna quickly find out that there's a link between the two, meaning our vehicle. And we're gonna get pulled in no matter what, but we have full insurance coverage. So that would be, our insurance would take care of it, but I mean, the folks do a wonderful job by all accounts. They've been doing it.
And this would be a totally different conversation if CIRSA was not covering it.
Oh, we'd have a
But,
totally different
then we
conversation.
would need to look at leasing options or,
Right.
taking that away and having them use their own personal vehicle.
Well, I'm in agreement with you, Steve, as far as wanting the verification.
I would like a couple extra things is all I'm asking
Yeah,
for.
I don't think
Right.
that's unreasonable at all.
Does the signer know what they're, of this already?
They do, yes.
Okay. So
Rick
they-
has been
they
in
figured that in
contact
their
with
price.
them consistently, and they have no problem with the certificate of insurance.
Okay.
And I believe, I know Margaret reached out to them today. I said, make sure they have no problem with running the MVR, which I can't imagine they would.
Yeah.
So it's just, they're basic reasonable requests.
Yeah.
They're not out of line.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Do we need to vote on it, or
Well,
is that just giving direction?
I kind of wanted some direction from everybody right now, that's why I didn't want to include it, so now we will drop those items in the agreement if we could. I think you have that agreement, Lance?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's drop those items right in the agreement, and we'll put it on July 27th. So,
So it's more of an informal or an informational
yes.
item. Okay. Any final questions before we move on? Seeing none, we'll go to item number 12, HP maintenance contract.
You know what, we just actually took a look at this too. If you don't mind, can we just defer this till the 27th? There's no hurry here. Just a motion to defer to July 27th.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to defer this or table it until the 27th for the HP maintenance contract. Any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and the motion will pass. Now we'll get to item number 13, Resolution 20-07-01, a resolution of the City of Lamar renaming street connected to Sunset Ridge, currently known as Ridge Trail, shall be changed to Trail Ridge. Steve?
You know what, I have been requested by Linda to work on this because this is kind of odd, but apparently the UPS and FedEx and our delivery drivers are not recognizing the actual city street name, which is correct on our books, right, Linda?
Well,
It's just not
no.
correct in the county, or,
No, it's not even correct on ours. Back in 2016, so when the Ridges was created, everything ended in Ridge, except for one street, and they reversed it and put it as Trail Ridge. Never got caught or changed. So
Ridge Trail.
Correct. Sorry. Never got changed, so on all the maps it says Ridge Trail instead of Trail Ridge. And then back in 2016, Wiley Work started working on it to get consistency in that area, and he changed it with our local USPS office and in our system, our utility billing system, to be
So our
Trail
system
Ridge.
shows it as Trail Ridge right
Correct.
now. Okay, that's what I
But
thought.
when the one person who lives on that street tries to order stuff and it comes delivery by a common carrier or UPS, FedEx, they won't deliver out there. So, I think for consistency, we should get it changed, get it recorded, so that we can,
Because at the county, it's still showing Ridge Trail.
correct.
And on all the maps.
And all
And
of our
and
maps.
And it's gotta show Trail Ridge. But the US Post Office knows it is Trail Ridge. And the one person's
Right.
address is Trail Ridge.
Because our engineering department gives the post office the new addresses. So he changed it
It's a
with
bizarre
them,
thing, everybody.
but it didn't get finalized, I'm
The-
guessing.
The bottom line is, the name should be Trail Ridge, so this resolution will make sure that that becomes effective everywhere.
We annexed that, what, 2-3 years ago?
I'm sorry?
We annexed that area, what, 2 or 3 years ago?
It's been like 5.
Yeah, so
Well, maybe that's why Wiley did it in 16,
Yeah, 'cause it
because
was-
maybe that's when it was
all
annexed,
county,
yeah.
annexing
It was
it.
all
Right.
county.
I wasn't here, but there's gotta be some reason why this is all jumbled. One house though, so,
Yeah, there's only one house that lives on that particular street right now.
and their address is Trail Ridge. So we just
But-
wanna make sure they have the same address everywhere.
I make a motion, we make the name change.
Just adopt resolution 200701.
Yeah, whatever he said.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution for 20-07-01, renaming it to Trail Ridge. Any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Number 14, the Main Cafe Historic Structural Assessment Grant Application. This is for the Main Street Cafe that the city had purchased as a project for the URA, and this is the next step in the process. So, would you like to speak on that?
It's $15,000, and it just so happens that's what the fee is to do this, is $15,000, so.
So the grant will
That's
cover the fee.
that's very convenient, so the grant actually just matches the fee that it takes to do this. There's no cash match from the city. I'd like authorization to proceed with the grant. So we can start something on the Main Cafe.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the HSA grant application and allow the mayor to sign the page, or the signature page. Any final questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion passes. We did have one item, which was agenda item number 1, that was skipped over. On agenda item number 1, it was for a public hearing. And this was a public hearing that was going to be rescheduled, or was it?
Stanton Sage.
Okay.
For the fair.
Would you like to speak on that, Steve?
Well, yeah, I know Linda, I believe you had scheduled a public hearing, Linda.
There was a
Then they
public
actually
hearing
withdrew
scheduled
their
for tonight.
request. So it was, if in case people saw that we're expecting to speak tonight, I think it would just be proper to just let everybody know. There was a properly advertised public hearing, however, due to the petitioner withdrawing the request.
So it's because they canceled the
They
event.
withdrew, yes.
And they withdrew the application or the request to have the beer garden at the Stanton Sage Fair.
Right.
Since they withdrew it, there's no reason to have the actual public hearing to discuss it.
Since it was advertised, it's just important for everybody to know why.
So we were just informing everybody that that was taking place. All right, for miscellaneous, moving on, do we have any other questions from the community? I don't see any on Facebook, none on YouTube, or none on the media. Do we have any topics for questions from the council?
I got one regarding that Senate Bill 22-117, which is that officer enhanced liability bill that came out. Specifically regarding the $25,000 liability that each individual officer has to come up with if they ever get sued. I know is Sersha planning on covering that? Because I know like CTSI, who covers the counties, is planning on covering that. And I know Greenwood Village, I believe, is saying we're going to cover our officers. We're going to take care of our officers. Have we ever thought about anything like that? Has Sersha ever said anything like?
Well, we are, you know what, Raphael, we are going to be doing a study session where the chief is actually going to speak to this now, coming up, and this is going to be one of the things that the city council is going to have to look at. It's been recommended, I know that there are agencies where police officers are getting private insurance now. It's almost like malpractice insurance, like Lance would have, or a doctor. They now have exposure, personal exposure. So that's stuff we have to talk about. But I know that
one of the issues that's rising statewide and even locally is guys are just like, you know what, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to let the bad guy go. Because if I do something, I don't want to get sued. I don't want to put my family in that financial burden of $25,000. You know,
it's causing issues.
And Steve and I had a discussion on that a few times as far as compliance with this new Senate bill and how the police department was going to handle that. And that's why we had discussed having a work session, a council work session, to have the chief come in. We weren't only going to do it about the police department, but about emergency services in general, to give the whole council an update on what's happening with the ambulance and the fire department, how they're dealing with COVID, but more importantly, to come back to Kyle to let him tell us a little bit about how he's addressing the Senate bill issues, because we have. I mean, it is pretty significant, and it's going to make some changes for his department. So I think it would be very advantageous for us to sit down and have that conversation and ask the questions that you're talking about.
There's a lot of reporting requirements in there that we're doing most of it now. There are some requirements that took effect immediately. Some take effect September 1st. Some take effect 2023. I sent it to Kyle, and I actually read the entire thing and did an outline of it and sent it to Kirk. I couldn't believe it. I was calling. I said, "Did you actually read this?"
Yep.
It is pretty. There's a lot in it, and what Raphael says is exactly correct. That the buzz around the state is, why am I going to put myself out there now, and when we're now exposed? They face personal exposure now.
I think this work session will give us the opportunity to see what is being worked on, what's being planned, but also for Kyle to talk to the council and let us know what he's needing, if you're needing resources, if you're needing assistance or any kind of questions. So it just kind of leaves that door open. So I thought this was probably going to be a longer discussion once we all get into it.
I wanted to give Lance the opportunity to read the legislation and digest it more. So.
I saw it initially whenever they were considering it, but I haven't read it since they actually passed the full bill where they changed amendments to it, because initially they didn't have any good faith exceptions in there. Now I think they do have good faith exceptions, but I want to look at it more closely before speaking on it.
I mean, it goes into body cams, it goes into specifics about turning them off if they malfunction. You have to be able to prove this. There's just a lot to this new law, and it's going to require more than 10 minutes of discussion, because it's significant. And like I said, I read the whole thing. I have notes all over it, and I think we need to give Lance a chance to really take a peek at it before we have that kind of discussion, because I know there's going to be a lot of legal questions. In addition to operational, that Kyle's going to have to deal with. So,
and we as a council had talked a few meetings back. Because of the issue of defunding the police, and it was pretty much unanimous as a head nod that all the council was unanimously in favor of never doing that.
We're not going to
defund the police. So that's not a question. So if we're not going to defund the police, we need to just be up to date and make sure that the police has the resources they need. If there are questions or comments, we can discuss it then. Our main goal with the accounting department, with Steve and the city administration, with any part of the city, is transparency and letting the community know what we're doing. So we want to make sure that we continue with that as well. We're looking at the 27th.
I wanted to look into August, if we could, maybe first meeting in August.
Okay.
Because a lot of the stuff we don't do, it's not till September, but this will give everybody a chance to take a look at it. Plus, I'm gonna be moving that, I'm not gonna have a whole lot of time to deal with it. So
Okay.
if we could move it to the first week in August, that would be great. Or first meeting, I should say, I'm sorry.
First meeting in August.
Then
And we
Jeremy
could do a
will-
Monday aside from a meeting night, if we think it might take a little longer than an hour.
Either that or start a little earlier on a Tuesday, if people wanted to do that. Whatever the council would like is fine.
So we've done the first Monday before, and then the second Monday was the meeting. Would you want to do the first Monday as a work session, or?
The Monday before, yeah.
So that's Fair Week, I believe.
Jeremy will be.
Oh, that's right.
So we won't be able to do that. So will you be here the following week for that? Okay, so we'll just leave it on the night of the council meeting, so that way Jeremy can be here to address the council.
Perhaps we could start, earlier.
An hour.
An hour earlier, because I gotta think this discussion's gonna be a
It's gonna
good
take a while.
half hour, 45 minutes at least
Yeah.
of substantive discussion.
In the meantime, can you check with CIRSA to see if they have any plans for coverage?
I think CIRSA's working on this because they're not sure
Yeah.
what to do because CIRSA's basically a state agency.
Right.
And I know the state's trying to shift liability to the officer.
Right.
So this will give us a chance to. It's kind of disappointing the way it's written. It's difficult.
I'm wondering how many other insurance companies would be able to carry a binder on it, just as an addition.
Well, that's why I
Not carrying the
know
full, but just carrying a binder.
Well, and that's why I've heard of there's different private insurance out there that will cover this. It's almost like a malpractice insurance.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Kyle, it's it's probably a good way to explain it. I don't know how else to
Yeah,
say it.
and the original bill was 100,000.
Yes.
So I'm very thankful that we got to cut down to 25, which was 0. I'm thankful that it's put up to 25. There are some other states that are looking at actually requiring officers to have insurance, to basically malpractice insurance.
I know.
Yeah.
So if we do something wrong, we have an insurance company that's going to put it back us up. A lot of the things in the bill, we're already doing. Like 85% of them, we're already doing. But the biggest thing is the tracking. There's 22 different data points we have to track on each contact, officer-initiated contact. So we're trying to figure out what that's going to look like. We're trying to get our record management system, our CAD, our computer-aided dispatch system to log those for us automatically as we go to our call, and then it'll generate a report at the end of the month and send it to the state. The state's not sure what that's going to look like for them yet. They don't know where it's going to be reported to, how it's going to be reported. So we're just starting to fill out paper files, and it's getting thicker every day, of all the contacts we make every day. So it's not a huge change for us. There's a couple things in there that are kind of shocking at first.
The liability section is the biggest.
Absolutely.
Is one of the biggest issues, and just the liability on an officer for even forgetting to turn a cam on. I mean, when you even were talking to me, you remember when you were in
Yeah.
uniform? Raphael had to have his camera on. When we were just standing having a conversation, it's to the point where it's getting like that.
That's
It
what the
is-
state wanted.
Yeah, it's
They actually
rough.
took that off a little bit, so they backed off a little
Did
bit.
they back off a
But
little bit
the
on
state
that?
actually wanted that. Any time we were in contact with anybody, we'd have to have it on.
Yeah.
So that, like, if you went in an open jar to get a soda and take a 2-minute break to go in and cool off a little bit, the way it was written is you had to turn your body camera on because you were going to talk to a clerk.
People.
Right.
I mean, it was. I'm glad it got reduced down a little bit. It's much easier to swallow now. than-
And you have to save that footage, right? I mean,
Yep.
Right, their retention. We already have all that. So that's, we've had body cameras for 5 years now. So we're gonna need to expand our server, our storage a little bit, because we have so much more data. But there's grants and things like that that we're gonna do. So
How's the overall staff morale concerning it?
I've had a couple of resignations because of it. As a direct cause from both of them, that's what they told me. I'm putting my family in jeopardy, even more than I was before. Now I'm putting my financial means in jeopardy. So it's tough. It's tough to swallow.
Okay.
And it's pretty much in every agency. I mean, we've had a couple guys thinking about it as well.
Yeah.
So, seriously, thinking about it.
So that's what we'll do on that meeting, is we'll get a little bit more in depth on it. You know, I know there's going to be a lot of questions, so if you want to think about it between now and then, ask any questions, get any information that you feel is necessary, but we want to make sure that, just like any other department, there's transparency, there's accountability, there's checks and balances, and that we're supporting those departments for doing everything that they do for our community. So, you know, it all works together.
I can send you the copy of the law that I have made my margin notes in, if you want.
Yeah, I'd like
That'll just, it'll make it quicker as you're going through it because it's fairly thick.
Yeah, I'd help.
It takes hours to read if you're just gonna read the whole thing from scratch. So, we'll do it August 10th, Linda, right? August 10th, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And maybe do 6 at the
6
latest.
o'clock.
Yeah. We'll call it a public safety update study session, just.
Okay. All right. Any other miscellaneous items do we need to discuss? All right, seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you for attending tonight.